is really fighting me today. Okay. All right, you'll recognize the book. Ta-da. I even have it all synced up with the book. We're doing okay. Okay, so this is Biochemistry in Space and Time, Chapter 1. And this is your learning goals for this chapter. And you'll notice that that's just the outline for the chapter, same stuff as you find in the book, right? And so biochemistry, the definition of biochemistry is the study of the chemistry of the life process. Now, this actually is an incredibly diverse field, and frankly speaking, that is a very vague statement, right? That's a big statement. So, which is why human knowledge only covers a very small part of this, and we'll cover a small part of that. So, we'll take a sliver off of this, okay? But no, there's much, much more out there. So, you guys all know that large organisms are built of cells. These resemble single-celled microscopic organisms, though single-celled microscopic organisms and the cells within your body, there's some very important differences. Anybody know what sort of differences that would be? So if you take a single-celled organism, typically they can survive by themselves if you split it off right. If you took your red blood cell, could it survive by itself? No. Because many of the cells in our bodies or in a multicellular organism are not independently viable, right? Though there are some that are independently viable and could theoretically, like that's a lot of what happens with cancer, in case you're curious. You guys know cancer can survive on its own, as long as it has nutrients around it. Did you know cancer is immortal? Yeah, so when they make an immortal stem cell line, they actually basically give it cancer. Yeah, they're cancerous cells. So, and if they continue being given the nutrients, they'll survive and keep replicating for basically forever. Yeah. So there's actually a cell line out there that's almost 50 years older than the person that it was taken from has died. And it's 50 years later. So biochemistry process involves the interplay of large biological macromolecules. Macromolecules, macro meaning big, right? And these can be things like proteins, nucleic acids, like deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA. We have some metabolites here. There's also the lower molecular weight metabolites, these being examples. Can you see my cursor? Yes. Glycol, glucose, you guys are probably familiar with those to some degree. Can you guys see the macromolecules with your eyes, by the way? Who here thinks you have seen macromolecules with your eyes? Who here thinks you have never seen macromolecules with your eyes? Like you could see an aggregate DNA. You can't usually see individual DNAs unless you do a microscope. But do you know what your hair is? Look at your hair real quick. Can you see it? Can you see that? That's a macromolecule. Each individual strand of hair is a protein. Just really big. It's a polymer. Yeah, so you've actually seen macromolecules with your eyes. Cool, huh? Okay, there's other ones, of course, but you'll realize that when we do it. So I'm not going to actually do the eye clickers much. We'll just quickly. Do you guys prefer if I read them, or can you guys just read them and tell me? I think it's faster for you to read them, right? Okay, so go ahead and read that and let me know which one you think it is. Okay. Yeah, so a class of molecule known as macromolecule because it's very, very long and big, right? There's a whole lot more to the DNA system than you guys probably ever knew, but we'll get into that in like 3 chapters worth of layering. Okay? But for now, long, big macromolecule, right? Okay. So DNA binding protein, which is the TATA binding protein shape, is actually similar in 3 very different organisms. Why would it be similar in multiple different organisms that basically have almost nothing to do with each other? We have a plant, humans, single-celled organism. Exactly. Yeah. Because function is dictated by geometry, right? Why do all the 2-legged organisms look somewhat alike and have similar bones and all that? Because walking on 2 legs is similar. You gotta have 2 legs and they walk, right? So why does a muscle look a lot like a bike chain? Why does it work similar? Because you're moving something, right? They have a similar process, they need a similar structure, okay? So structure dictates function. Structures have to be alike, okay? Similar function means similar structure, doesn't it? Right. So here we have a sort of possible timeline for biochemical evolution. This is something that gets a little bit of changes here and there, and then all of a sudden it gets shifted up and changed completely every now and then. But it's probably, overall, the trend is probably pretty good now, because they've been doing extensive DNA testing for about 30 years now. So it should be pretty decent. Earth formed roughly 4.5 billion years ago, right? And then we have a whole lot of work done. And then round about here, we have microorganisms, which is about 1 billion years of development, okay? Partially, this has a very different Earth, keep that in mind, from 4.5 billion to 3.5 billion, okay? Now, how are you guys with the evolution, natural selection stuff? Anybody really religiously opposed to this? No? Do I have to walk on eggshells or? Okay. Okay. Like, I don't care if you believe that there's an intelligent design at all. That's not my purview of things. But the thing I do need you to accept is that organisms change over time due to this DNA mechanism, and that natural selection can occur to some degree. Okay? Even if it's guided by God's hand or whatever. Okay? Because without that, there's a lot of modern biology. It doesn't work. Okay? And it kind of works. So, yeah. Anyways, microorganisms 3.5 billion years ago. Cells with nuclei show up around 2.25-ish billion years ago. Keep in mind, these are pretty damn loose dates. Okay? Plus or minus billions of years. It's a lot. Also keep in mind that a lot of these things, for example, the oxygen atmosphere forming here, forms between 2 to 1.5 billion. What that means is before this time, actually there was not a significant amount of oxygen in the atmosphere. Okay? And there have been multiple times throughout this history where oxygen levels fluctuated drastically due to the organisms and environment, meteorites, that sort of thing. And so there's actually a thing that looks a bit like a mushroom. It wasn't really a mushroom though, because fungi don't at that time. But it's basically like towers that have like bulbs at the end that were growing on the bottom of the ocean. They actually changed the entire chemical makeup of the atmosphere and killed themselves off. Okay? So when people talk about like the shift of CO2 and stuff, we're not even close to what some of the organisms have done to this planet before us. So it's wild. There's some crazy stuff that's went on in this period. These right here is macroorganisms. What am I doing for time, by the way? Okay, we're done then. We'll start up on here next time. By the way, I have no clock. Yeah, there's no clock at all. So if you don't let me know when I'm over.